The Adventures of Flower Petal, March of the Trumpeter Swans. Written by Lucy A. McDougall. Illustrations by Nikolskaya Tatiana.
Read by Ferenc Delatorre.
For the children. Beginning. It was not so long ago when along the banks of the River Dew a gentle little boy said goodbye to his boat, Flower Petal. She was his creation, built with unspoiled love and a child's imagination. And on that fateful day of her beginning, Flower Petal began her new adventures. She was both scared and a little excited as she sailed past the bend in the river and lost sight of her creator. She had never been alone. He had always been close in the event she got into trouble. The more she thought of him, the more her loneliness grew, and the more her fear climbed inside her. She wanted to turn back, but when she tried, she couldn't. The current was too strong and drew her forward. Her stomach tightened. She felt sick, and loneliness descended upon her. As her fear was reaching its peak, she suddenly remembered his words. "No matter what happens, I will always be with you." She closed her eyes and listened carefully. It was difficult at first because of all the noise that surrounded her. She concentrated, and soon she began to hear a soft boom, boom. It grew louder as she quieted her thoughts. Boom, 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 went the little drum inside her. "I love you," it said. "Remember, I am always with you." Flower Petal smiled and felt a little less scared and a little bit happier. She began to look around to see what lay ahead. She was now drifting quietly on Lac Bielfond, a small, quiet lake in the middle of the old Jura Mountains. It did not take long for the creatures in the lake to spot her. The ducks were the first to notice. They began to quack amongst themselves. Quack, 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 which if you don't understand duck means, "What is that thing?" Then a couple of fish jumped up and out of the water right over her bow and gurgled, "Blub, blub, blub, blub," which if you do not understand fish means, "What is that thing?" Finally, some young swans came paddling up to her. "Honk, honk, hiss, hiss," said the first swan to the other, which if you don't understand swan means, "What is that thing?" The young swans did not know, but they did recognize the white feather. "Why, that is a swan's feather," said Snobby Swan. "You're right," said Silly Swan. "Hey, Grumpy Swan, come here," she honked. Drawn by the noise, the other young swans in the lake looked over and noticed Flower Petal and her feather. All at once they began to move towards her. Flower Petal was getting scared. She didn't like the way the young swans spoke to her, and she didn't like the way they looked at her. Many of the other creatures on the lake soon started to swim towards her. They thought she looked funny, and some of them started to laugh. Flower Petal was very sad. As often happens, things became worse before they could get any better. Snobby Swan said, "She looks like a spy." "No, she's a thief," yelled Silly Swan. "Look, she has stolen one of our feathers." "But I didn't steal your feather," cried Flower Petal. "You're right," said Snobby Swan, ignoring her. "She looks like trouble." "But I'm not trouble," said Flower Petal. No one was listening. "I say we take her to jail," shouted Grumpy Swan. "Yes, yes, to jail," said the crowd of young swans that gathered around her. "To jail she must go." The young swans circled around Flower Petal and forced her across the lake towards the jail. Being young and without much experience in life, Flower Petal began to cry. She tried to be brave like Cole had taught her, but it was so hard. And then she remembered his words. When you're in doubt and you don't know what to do, take a deep breath. If you still don't know what to do, take another. So she took a deep breath, and another, and then another. In fact, it took 7 deep breaths before the answer came to her. She took one final deep breath, and with a great deal of courage said, "Why are you being so mean to me?" Someone finally listened to her. It was Silly Swan. "You have stolen one of our feathers," he said accusingly. "And there is something strange about the way you look," said Snobby Swan. "But I didn't steal anything, and I cannot help the way I look," Flower Petal replied. "Silence!" shouted Grumpy Swan. "You must wait for the Protector to come." "Who is that?" asked Flower Petal. "The Protector is our leader. She will decide whether or not you are guilty, and if you are, you will have to stay here in this jail forever, or at least until you give us back our feather." "Oh no," cried out Flower Petal. "I cannot give you back the feather. Without it, I won't be able to sail." "Well then, I guess you will have to stay in our jail forever," said Silly Swan. Poor Flower Petal. Events were not looking good for her, and she started to cry once again. It was at that moment that the Protector arrived. She was a large, beautiful, and very graceful swan. Her head was held up high, and her wings were folded calmly by her sides. She looked at the younger swans rather suspiciously, and then at the frightened and crying Flower Petal. She turned back to the young swans and said with an exasperated air, "Well, what have you done now?" "Madame Protector, we have captured a thief, a robber, someone who has committed a bad, bad crime," shouted Snobby Swan. "And what do you think they have stolen?" asked the Protector. "See for yourself," they said as they pointed towards Flower Petal. The Protector approached Flower Petal. She put on her reading glasses and carefully looked at her. She noticed the wondrous yellow buttercup, smiled and said, "That's very pretty." "Thank you," said Flower Petal. She looked at the rusty nail and piece of foam that formed her helm and smiled and said, "That is not so pretty." "Sorry," said Flower Petal sheepishly. Then the Protector looked at the feather sticking out from Flower Petal's body. "Well," she finally said to Flower Petal, "where did you get this from?" "I got it from the little boy who created me," said Flower Petal proudly. "Ah, that would explain your strange form," said the Protector. "The little boy found a feather along the bank of the river and decided to use it as my sail," continued Flower Petal. "Well," the Protector said, "I need time to think." She thought, and she thought some more. It seemed like a long, long time to Flower Petal. When she finally stopped thinking, she turned to Silly, Snobby, and Grumpy and said, "You silly geese." "We are not geese, we are swans," Grumpy Swan answered indignantly. "Yes, but today you have behaved like silly geese." "What?" the young swans cried out. "Look into the water. Look all around you. Look upon our banks. What do you see?" asked the protector. "I see water," said Silly Swan. "And I see grass," said Snobby Swan. "I don't see anything," said Grumpy Swan angrily. "No, you silly geese," the protector replied with her voice raised. "What is floating in the water? What is resting upon the grass?" There was a long pause, and then slowly the three young and very silly, snobby and grumpy swans realized that there were feathers floating on the water and feathers resting upon the grass. There were so many feathers in some places, it looked like tiny patches of snow left over after winter has gone to sleep and spring has awoken. The protector said, "I don't believe that Flower Petal stole a feather." "What? Why not?" said the three young swans. If you had bothered to use your ears for listening, you would have heard Flower Petal explain that her creator gave her the feather. He could have found one that had fallen off one of us. "Oh," they said, "you are right, protector, and so smart." "Does that mean I'm not in trouble?" asked Flower Petal. "Of course you're not in trouble. In fact, we owe you an apology." "What does that mean?" said Silly Swan. "That means you three must say you are sorry to Flower Petal." "Oh dear, we are so sorry," said Silly, Snobby, and Grumpy Swan. Flower Petal, blessed with the grace and kindness of her creator, smiled and said, "Not to worry, apologies accepted." "Well, I'm glad we solved that problem. I'm so sorry that these silly geese caused you so much trouble. Is there anything we can do to make up for it?" asked the protector. "Well, I am supposed to be off on some exciting adventures, yet I'm not certain how to begin." "Ah, my young child," said the protector. "So you're on a quest, a great journey, eh?" "Maybe, but I'm not sure what a quest is," said Flower Petal. "A quest is when one goes in search of something special," replied the protector. "Yes, I guess you're right," said Flower Petal. "I am on a quest," she said with some uncertainty. "A great adventure to find something special. That is what he said," she continued. "But I do not know what it is or where to look," lamented Flower Petal. "I am not certain either, Flower Petal, but I can tell you that a boat that was built with so much love was built for something special." But the others laughed at me. They said I looked funny. They did not say I looked special. "Ignore them, little one," the protector replied gently. "Their ignorance blinds them. Don't let these minor distractions in life alter your course." "I won't," said Flower Petal. "I just wish I knew what my course is." "Well, you will not find it here amongst us silly geese," said the protector. "But I am certain that if you keep your head up, use your eyes to see and your ears to listen, and just keep thinking, one day you will find what it is that you are looking for. Now," she continued, "one thing we can do for you is something we swans love to do for all our friends." "You mean I am now your friend?" asked Flower Petal hopefully. "Of course you are. Now stop sounding like a silly goose and let me finish. Flower Petal, as our new friend, would you be our honored guest and join us in a parade?" When the other swans heard the word parade, they became all excited. Feathers ruffled, necks were stretched in the air, and then one of the swans let out a long honk. This was followed by 2 short honks, and then another long one. It was a signal, and it caused all 15 swans from the lake to come together and line up on either side of Flower Petal. And then it began. First, the older swans honked really low and created a steady beat. Then they were joined by the higher sounds of the young swans. Then, just like a band full of heralding trumpeters, all the swans took a deep breath, stretched out their necks, and joined the cacophony. Honk, 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 honk. They escorted Flower Petal to the far end of the lake. When they reached the other side, the music slowed and quieted. The protector glided to the front and said, "Flower Petal, this is as far as we can take you. Be brave and remember the things your Creator taught you. If you do, I am certain you will find that special something you are looking for." And with the final fanfare of honking, honk honk, honk honk, which meant hooray for Flower Petal, hooray for Flower Petal, they bid her adieu. "That was really beautiful music. Thank you," said Flower Petal. "You're welcome, Flower Petal. Good fortunes on your adventures," replied the protector. The day was growing old, and shadows descended into the valley where the river Dew flowed. The gentle wind blew softly over the river into the white feather sail that pushed Flower Petal through the river. Although the river was calm, Flower Petal was nervous. She was alone again, and not sure where her adventure would take her. She closed her eyes and listened carefully. She concentrated, and soon she began to hear a soft boom, boom. It grew louder as she calmed her thoughts. Boom, 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 went the little drum inside her. "I love you," it said. "Remember, I am always with you." Other works in print by Lucy A. McDougall. Flower Petal, the watercolor edition. The Hug That Saved the World. The Nap. Bear in Your Bed. Little Shadow.